Hello, well, it's good to have a chance to speak to you again. It's my next assembly. I hope you're all very well. As ever, all the staff at Malmesbury School send you their very best wishes and look forward to seeing some of you at some point after the half-term holiday. I know that in Year 10 and Year 12 you'll be expecting to hear about the plans that we have to see some more of you back in school at some point over the next half term. It's still a little bit unclear, but Mr. Barrett has written out with details about that, and there'll be more to follow once we've had some more clarification from the government. But anyway, just another little assembly, bringing together a few ideas, things I've seen in the news and been thinking about over the last few weeks. I suppose the big thing that really prompted this assembly was all the VE Day commemorations that were held, obviously all over the press, and I know a number of people had socially distanced street parties or gatherings outside their front door with friends and neighbours, and a really interesting moment to reflect on what was obviously a hugely important part of our nation's history. And just in the days after that, one of the things that really occurred to me, and reading a few things in papers and online, was what that means for us as British people as we look back at those events 75 years ago. Because there's a danger in national commemorations like this that become part of our country's history, that we rewrite them and they become something in our minds and in our culture that perhaps they really weren't. And I think one of the things that struck me is that there's a danger when we think about VE Day, that we think about it being a British victory against the forces of Nazism in Europe, and a British victory. And I think looking back at VE Day and thinking now about the current health crisis that we're in, one of the most important things to remember is that VE Day was a victory for all of the nations of the world, and many of our European friends and partners and countries that we have a more troubled relationship with now, possibly like Russia, were hugely influential in that. Somewhere between 8 and 11 million Russian soldiers died in the Second World War, many of them fighting in Europe to liberate Eastern Europe from the Nazis. Something like 500,000 American soldiers died during the Second World War, and troops from all over what was then the Empire, India, Pakistan, African colonies, the Caribbean nations, the South Sea Island, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, hundreds of thousands of troops from all over the world gave their lives to fight for the freedom of the world and against the horrors of Nazism. So I think one of the things that VE Day should really remind us is that when we face great national challenges, we're important. We have an important role to play in that ourselves, but it's very important that we remember that we rely on our international friends and partners, and that no country can stand alone against a global evil. And obviously, as I said, there are real echoes in our current situation. Every country around the globe is facing problems with the coronavirus, and the solutions to it will be global solutions. We rely on the wonderful staff in our National Health Service and care homes and in all of our public sector. And of course, thousands of those staff come from all over the world to work in this country. And we absolutely rely on people from every corner of the globe. So I thought VE Day, in the midst of the current situation, was a good opportunity just to reflect on the importance of our international partnerships and understanding that as nations we rely on each other, and obviously now more than ever as individuals we rely on each other, and we're in many cases missing our friends and families that we can't see at the moment, but we know more than ever that we rely on the help and support of people delivering shopping, keeping essential services running, and of course in the health service, but in all other aspects of public life as well. And all of that, I suppose, put me in mind of one of my favourite poems in the English language, and some of you will have heard me use it before in assemblies, but I'll take the opportunity just to read it to you again. And it's by the poet John Donne. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. A somewhat sombre poem, perhaps, but it has a remarkable power to remind us that all of humanity is completely related and interconnected, and we are diminished by every death and sorrow wherever it happens in the globe. And in order to face these things, we need to look to friends wherever we can find them. Anyway, that's my thoughts in the time reflecting back on VE Day. As I say, I hope you're all well. Everyone at the school is working very hard to prepare for the next phase of this situation. Obviously, we're open for some students and we've got staff coming in. And I know your teachers are sending lots of work home with you, and you're doing extremely well in keeping up with it. It is a really tough time for you all, but we will send you our very best wishes. Thanks very much.